Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Impact by Haley Jenner, narrated by Sofia Willingham and Nelson Hobbs. 1. Defeat, surrender. Varying ends of a depressing spectrum. Polar opposites. One signifying greater power, strength, winning. The other its counterpart, resignation. A white flag waving so loudly it's a perfect symbol of your own submission. Memories tend to be catalogued by reminders, the familiarity your senses recognize pulling past experiences back into the forefront of your mind. Voluntary or not, it doesn't matter. A smell, a taste, the feeling of touch, something you can see. They're appreciations your mind collects over time, building your life experience, be it positive or negative. I'd imagine most people would smell the cedar wood here in this room, the potent odor that tickles your nostrils, lingering with importance and command. For me, the smell is repugnant, suffocating, one that will haunt me for the remainder of my days. So thick with my own defeat, with failure, I can't even manage to pull a full breath. My ears feel hollow, comparable to the feeling of being submerged in water, voices above nothing but a dull echo. The scrape of a chair, the clearing of a throat, all too far away, yet closer than I'd care for them to be. Inhaling heavily through my mouth, I taste the bitterness of my own remise. My hands shake, and I clench them tightly around the brittle sheets of paper clasped within my damp palms. Smoothing the crinkled line against the podium, I blink forcibly in an attempt to focus on the scratch of blue pen marked messily along the lines. My heart is screaming at me to stop, to walk away, leave the chips to fall where they may. I'm not strong enough, my heart insists, not to continue along this path. We just want to sleep, it says, crawl into the warmth of my bed and never leave. We'll be safe there. Safe. But I've yet to hand over the final sliver of strength left in my mind. I'm clinging to that like a lifeline. It's letting me breathe, if just for now. I don't doubt that after today I would have used that up too. My mind henceforth as empty as my body, as my heart currently feels. 8 months ago. My words feel like stripped metal on my vocal cords, jagged and useless. I clear my throat, refusing to look anywhere but at the words before me. I had my whole life ahead of me. I was young. I was happy. I continue. 8 months ago, my body was mine. My mind was mine. My voice shakes right before it cracks, and I pause, clenching my teeth against the tremor in my jaw. I bite my lip, silencing the indelicate sob fighting to escape. Hints of it succeed, choking out in a stuttered breath. Moments of that night are faded, hazy in parts. But there are fragments, flashes, minutes that are so very clear. They're my own living nightmare, and no matter how hard I try, I can't escape. I glance up then, seeking refuge from the judge, a middle-aged white man with hair the color of snow. My lawyer assured me this allotment to my case was a good thing. His history, his long history, shows a clear bias toward women's rights. The weathered lines of his face give nothing away, only watching on impassively as I speak, but I take solace in the kindness in his eyes, encouraging me forward. You took liberty on my body that wasn't yours to take. But what I think you failed to realize, or possibly you didn't care. I shrug to myself, my shoulders remaining bunched near my neck in defense, is that in that decision, you stole the liberty of my mind, Your actions, your decision, it now controls my life. I pause, needing a second to gather my composure. Inhaling deeply, I roll my shoulders, releasing them from the bind of my neck. My life is now an ode to what you stole. First it was my body, my right to say no. Then you murdered my dignity. I realized that more as I lay on a hospital bed, my legs open as doctors poked and prodded my already violated body. Images of that moment choose to flood my mind, and I choke on my breath. Bile rushes up my throat, but I swallow the acidity and the burn of the memories back down. You stripped away my feeling of safety. I panic in crowds, but I'm petrified to be alone, which means I no longer know where I fit in this world. I have a scar on my inner thigh, one you gave me. A bite mark so brutal it remains imprinted in my skin like a tattoo. It's the only reminder I'm shockingly thankful for because it led to your arrest. It's ugly, and it will likely stay that way forever, which is fitting because it's now how I feel as a person. Ugly, scarred, damaged. I can feel his eyes burning a hole in the side of my face. The liquid stare that wakes me every night, screaming, sweating, and confident I'm ready to die. I Googled how long it takes skin to regenerate. The internet says 27 days. It doesn't seem like much, but for me, it felt like an eternity before the skin that you had touched would be gone from my body. What I didn't know was that your touch had burnt itself into my soul. So even if I could shed my skin in the way I hoped, it wouldn't have made a difference. I listen as the court stenographer records my statement, word for word, the soft tap-tap of fingers bracketing my words. I see you in every man I come across. The mailman, the police officer who took my statement, the elderly man who walks his dog every morning and every afternoon by my house. They're all you. I fear you. I fear them. I feel unsafe. I don't leave my house, not unless I'm forced to. My life has changed irrevocably from the moment you made the choice to enter my body without consent. I live my life alone, and imagine I always will. Interaction with others is now too difficult. Can they see it? My shame? Do they know how disgusting I am? How dirty? A tear falls from my lashes, and I wipe at it quickly, annoyed that he'll see me cry again. 8 months ago, I had my whole life ahead of me. I force myself to look at him. The blink of time that our eyes connect, enough to open the floodgates as my tears begin a continuous journey down my face. Now I've pushed away every friend I've ever had. I quit my job. I ended a relationship that up until you made me feel like the most special person in the world. Now I feel like a nobody. I have no direction because I'm lost, and no matter which direction I turn, it's you that I come up against. He stares at me blankly, the picture of perfection in his chair. 8 months ago, I was young. I was happy. Now, most days, I feel ready to die. My self-worth is so low, I consider that the world would likely be a better place without me. Happiness is a memory I can no longer recall. I can't remember feeling anything but the emptiness I'm now consumed by. You stole my life, Miller Jacobs. You stole my life when you violated my body. You'll leave prison one day and live your life. There will be roadblocks for you, I'm sure, but I'll live in the prison of my mind for eternity. I curse you for that, for making me both the victim and the sentenced. Folding my paper, I hold it in my shaking hands. Looking away from my rapist, I focus back on the judge, knowing that I just handed over the final thread of strength I had been clinging to. I was right. From the very tips of my toes to the hairs on my head, I feel devoid, empty. Zoe Lincoln no longer exists. Not in this world. She gave the last piece of her soul in a show of strength, but it took everything from her in the process. 2. 4 years later. Marco? I speak loud enough to be heard over the consistent chatter of the coffee shop. Sliding an Americano over to the guy that steps up, avoiding eye contact, and moving my hand away quick enough that our skin won't accidentally touch. He thanks me, but I ignore him, turning back to the screen. This is how I spend the remainder of my shift, how I spend every shift, avoiding actual human interaction where possible. People with an insight into my history may think I'm scared, uncomfortable, frightened of others. I somewhat disagree. My hesitancy stems from the infuriating characteristic of human nature that requires people to know you. People are fundamentally intrusive. I don't like that. My past is my business. If I choose to share any part of myself, it's on my terms. Not by any possibility on theirs. Not anymore. Folding my apron neatly into a square, I slide it into my bag, thankful that my torturous 5-hour shift is now complete. Taylor! That's me. Taylor. More, it's who I identify as now. Taylor Smith. Non-existent, up until 4 years ago, anyway. I glance up from my bag, looking to Maya expectantly. Right, you don't really talk. Her eyes widen sarcastically, but she smiles all the same, sighing. You should come out with me and my friends sometime. You seem a little, I don't know, closed off. You need to loosen up. She doesn't fold her apron. She balls it up, wrapping the tie strings around the ball before shoving it in her bag. It irritates me. More than it should. Granted, I know that she's taking it home to wash it, but still. It just demonstrates how she'd live her life. Chaotic, rushed. There'd be no order, no structure. We're heading to Key Bar tonight. On 13th? She clarifies unnecessarily. Appreciate the offer, Maya, but clubs aren't really my thing. No! She feigns shock, a genuine smile touching her lips. I return the gesture. Come, it'll be fun. It's not really a club. Totally low-key. My head begins shaking before she's finished her sentence. Please, she begs, and I have to give it to her. She's persistent. I have no clue why. We're not friends. We don't chat. In fact, I'm quite positive this interaction right now is the most words we've ever exchanged. I've got this friend. He'd be so into you. Not interested. I shut her down abruptly, causing her eyebrows to draw together. No need to be rude. I was just saying he's a nice guy. And I told you I'm not interested. I cut her off impolitely. She mutters under her breath, retrieving her bag. Look, Maya, I start, waiting for her to look at me. I'm sorry, I'm not interested in meeting anyone. She watches me for a beat, sympathy cloaking her eyes like curtains, sliding all the way across to shroud them in pity. Bad breakup? I want to laugh. If only. Yeah, I lie. Something like that. I get it. She waves me off. Maybe another time. She turns and walks away before I can reject her again, and I exhale heavily, following her exit from the storeroom. It's not the worst idea, Zoe. I stare at Hannah through the screen of my Mac, shock forcing my eyebrows to my hairline. There's a smudge on my screen, blurring the line of her eye, and I lean forward to rub it away. Not the club, she clarifies, playing with the pen in her hand. Don't get me started on the number of triggers that would cause. Baby steps. I just mean getting out. I shift on my couch, pulling my legs under my butt. I get out. The defensive tone isn't lost to my ears. Hannah smiles. Zoe, Working 3 days a week in a coffee shop to pretend you're engaging in human interaction is not getting out. How many customers did you actually converse with today? I look away, patting Potter's fur, making him purr. My point exactly. The job was a great idea, Zoe, she reassures. It got you comfortable catching public transportation, being around crowds. The next step is to interact. Converse with other people. I nod. There is a book club advertised through the bookstore I visit. They meet once a month on a Saturday morning. I think it's a great idea, she encourages. That's your homework for the next month. Actually committing to attend and following through. Okay, I agree easily. Okay? I bite back my laughter. I said okay. The clock on my mantel ticks by in a solid and consistent beat, counting the seconds of silence that hangs between us. How are the nightmares? I cross my arms over my chest in defense, a tic that seems to have become a habit every time she brings up my broken sleep. Infrequent, I confess. Depends on the day. Hannah contemplates me for a moment, placing her pen neatly on her desk to lean closer. The thing with PTSD is that there's always going to be triggers. The cognitive processing therapy we worked on when you were still living here was incredibly successful in moving you past your stuck points. The self-blame. We've combated and overcome your thought process that you could have done something differently. The months following the incident, I was consumed with self-loathing. I wholeheartedly blamed myself. I would spend days on end obsessing over everything I could have done differently. How easy it would have been for me to avoid what happened to me. It was the hardest thing I've ever had to come to terms with, but with Hannah's guidance, I got to a point where I understood that I had no blame in Miller's actions. They were his and his alone. That acceptance aside, I've still yet to move past the trauma associated with the attack. The moments that come so out of the blue, I feel like I'm thrown back to that night, useless to fight off the fear of my own memories. What you're now ready to overcome are the intrusive thoughts that convince you it's going to happen again, that every man you come in contact with is capable of what Miller was. You're ready to live again, and that's a big step. Feels impossible. My confession feels choked out of my closing throat. So did coming to terms with the fact that your attack wasn't your fault. You made such great progress in the years following his arrest. The relapse in your fear is perfectly understandable. It's normal, Zoe. Your attacker was released back into society. His threat, in your mind, was reignited. Your peace will come. It all just takes time. You're still continuing with your mindfulness? Your meditation? Yeah, I confirm. Every night, every morning. Good, she praises, pleased by my commitment. I like Hannah Blackhouse. She was the first therapist I met following the incident. We connected. Well enough that when I left Charlottesville behind, I reached out after I started having panic attacks after Miller's release. 3 years. That's all he served. Good behavior or something ridiculous like that. If I wasn't so broken by his actions, it'd be comical. A man took liberty on my body. He forced himself inside of me, and 3 years of good behavior in an environment he had no choice but to adhere to the rules, and he's rewarded with his freedom. It doesn't matter that I'm still stuck in the prison of my mind, a sentence handed down by him. Hannah would be a little over 40, I'd guess. Blonde hair bobbed around the cool tone of her skin. Nondescript in appearance, purposefully, I assume. Everything from her voice to her appearance to her demeanor is subtle, subdued almost. She speaks in a quiet, almost monotone way, the sound soft and calming like the ocean. Her hair is always the same, her face free of makeup, clothes only ever natural hues of gray, beige, and white.
Even her gestures aren't overtly showy. Her hands and face always moving in a measured way. Hannah Blackhouse has built herself into someone you feel comfortable and trusting. She's not threatening in any way. She's a balm, a person without conscious effort you open yourself up to, comfortable to share the darkest parts of your soul, and even her streamlined self doesn't balk at you. She accepts, targets those twisted knots of who you are, and makes it her mission to unfurl those parts closing you off. I started running, I offer. Just at the gym. I can't bring myself to run through Central Park, but I run now, a few times a week. It seems to regulate my stress levels. A look of pride touches Hannah's smile, and my shoulders lift, a confidence I haven't felt in over 4 years filling my chest. Zoe, she pauses. You've come so far. It's so nice to see. I feel like a fraud. I want to tell her that I'm still a broken shell of who I used to be. That all these mechanisms I use to survive the day are stupid, menial. I shouldn't be afraid to talk to another human for fear they might ask me a personal question. I shouldn't stand against the corner of the door on the subway to make sure I don't feel trapped by another human, knowing escape is right at my back. I shouldn't refuse eye contact with any man for fear they might be him. But I do. I do it all. Suffering through each day, surviving because I can't find it in myself to give up. Our time is about up. She checks her watch. Remember your deep breathing. The unfortunate thing about triggers, Zoe, is that they're always going to be here. You're taking the right steps to ensure their effect isn't as heightened as they have been in the past. But in the moments your meditation and mindfulness don't work, breathe. She demonstrates unnecessarily, inhaling a full breath through her nostrils, her palm moving up her body as her lungs fill. She releases it heavily through her mouth, her palm pushing downward with the deflation of her lungs. I find myself following her movements, my body relaxing with the deep and purposeful intakes of air. Keep your talisman with you at all times, easily accessible. She waits for me to nod. You need a talisman. A talisman? I query, pulling my coat farther around my body. Hannah shifts on her couch. It won't work for everyone, but it's like an amulet, a protective object. A dark brow rises in disbelief, and she laughs. I'm not suggesting magic can work you through this, Zoe. I'm talking about an object to ground you, something that holds significance to you. A ring, a necklace, a coin, anything that reminds you of who you are, who you were before the sexual assault began defining you. I consider her request. Don't overthink it. A simple item that reminds you of everything in this life you still have. The queen is the most powerful piece on the board, Zoe, my dad explains. Remember that, always. She's formidable. I have something, I declare confidently. Perfect. Keep it on your person always. Hold it in your hand when you feel panicked. Breathe. Remember why that piece is important to you. You're doing well, Zoe. Hannah breaks me from my memories. You should be proud. Your strength is fighting through. It's there. We just need to nurture it back to the surface. Same time next month? She smiles. Remember your homework. Book club. Sign up. Speak to you in a few weeks. You know I'm here if you need anything in between. I wave, leaning forward to end the Skype call. I close my laptop, my eyes skating across the quiet room for a solid 10 minutes, my mind a blank canvas. It's common for me to feel this way after my session, a mixture of numb and calm. I can't tell you if my calmness is a result of feeling numb. My emotions shut off to a point that a feeling of peace settles inside of me. Or if it's the opposite, I'm calm to a point that the hurricane of feelings have been subdued. Either way, I like it. It's not saying there aren't sessions where Hannah pushes me to a point that I feel as raw, as bare, as vulnerable as I did that night, and the 8 torturous months to follow. They definitely pop up more often than I'd like, and I don't like them so much in the moment, no matter how much better I feel the days following. My phone rings like clockwork, and I roll my eyes at Potter, who doesn't see because he's too consumed with licking his paw to offer me the moral support I purchased him for. Fucking cats. Hi, Mom. I answer the call, standing to move around the apartment. Steps. They say you need 10,000 a day. Do you know how hard that is? It's okay when I'm working at the coffee shop, constantly on the move, but my real job has me sitting on my ass for hours on end. I'm an illustrator for children's books. I sit down for hours, sketching, shading, coloring. My hands ache and my butt tends to numb out after an hour. When I break, I walk, round and round my apartment like a psych patient talking to walls, which I'm not ashamed to admit I also do. Friends are limited, and my walls don't judge. They like me here, hiding from the cruel world. Zoe, sweetie, Dad's here too. Hi, Dad. Potter sits up at my voice, watching on, unimpressed, as I pace the apartment. Offended by my constant moving, he shifts, giving me his back before settling back into sleep. I can't see her, Dad mumbles. We're not on the face call, Richard. Mom's voice barks back, and I leave them to argue it out for another minute, before Dad's voice carries through the line again. Zoe, we can't hear you. Are you there? Yeah, guys, I sigh. I'm here. How are you, sweetie? I'm good, Dad, I offer quietly, working to calm the restlessness in his tone. Are you sure? You're so far away, I worry. Manhattan is so busy. I've had this same conversation every week since I moved away 3 years ago. Now, I'm no mathematician, but I'm guessing that my dad and I have had this conversation at least 150 times. Dad, I stop him. I promise, I'm doing really well. In fact, even Hannah commented on how far I'm coming along in our session just now. She did? Mom asks, surprised. Appreciate the vote of confidence, Mom. She humphs. I didn't mean it like that. You rarely speak about your sessions with Hannah. I'm glad you're still keeping them up. I swallow, rolling my shoulders in discomfort. I stopped for a while, I confess, but I felt stuck. I wasn't moving forward, so I called her. You were ready, Dad praises. Yeah, I agree. I guess. How's the coffee shop? Turning on my feet and moving back across the apartment, I placed them on speaker, holding the phone at my side. It's there. How are your friends? My feet stop, immediately, as though moving would take away from the lie that I've built about my social circle. They're good, I fib. In fact, I might head out with Maya from work tonight. I can hear Mom smile 400 miles away. Oh, sweetie, that's great. We'd love to meet her when we visit next. Yeah, we could maybe organize that. I cringe. When are you visiting? Oh, no set plans, my dad answers. Maybe Christmas. I breathe a sigh of relief. Not that I don't miss my parents, they're wonderful people. They're just so overbearing. They mean well, but even with their good intentions, they make everything worse. I'm more on edge than ever. What are you working on at the moment? I'm grateful for the change in subject, and for the next 45 minutes, I update them on my schedule for work. Mom, bless her, pretends to be interested, but she could never get her head around the fact that I get paid to color in. We end the call on I love yous and promises to speak same time next week. Throwing my phone on the couch, I check my Fitbit, fist bumping myself for adding 2,500 steps to my count. Only 7,500 to go. 3. The bookstore smells like you.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?